I filled it in. No time for the doubt, they counted me out, I'm getting it in, yeah. No time for no loss, I'm paying the cost, I'm in it to win, yeah. Diffused, mine, it can't be diffused. If you ain't thinking the same, then we playing by different rules. You can't see the vision, we living at different views. Until we complete the mission, keep getting up, never snooze. I walked a mile in my shoes, had the mind of a fool, chasing diamonds and jewels. Trust me, I was confused. Started minding my business and used my mind as a tool. Ended up finding my purpose and found the time to get to it. They told me I couldn't do it, they told me I couldn't make it. They sold it, could never break it. That's sadly mistaken. I need a piece of the pie, I want it so bad I can taste it. They told me like Toby, keep on running, toes they gon' take them. Used to lose, built to win, applied myself, I filled it in. No time for the doubt, they counted me out, I'm getting it in, yeah. No time for no loss, I pay for the cost, I'm winning to win, yeah. Refuse to lose, I'm built to win, applied myself.
All right, welcome back to CTC. I'm your host, Carl, and I'm back with another episode. I don't know why I was muted. I hit unmute at the start, and I don't know, it just didn't unmute. But we back, and we here to talk about 10 group of 5 schools that you should look out for. Now, I know you noticing, Carl, the background's a little different. I messed up. I started my washing machine. It's right next to where I film, so I had to move in my room, and my room ain't got the greatest lighting right now, as you can tell. But we're going to do what we got to do. Before I get into the episode, though, I'd like to ask that you like, comment, share, subscribe, all of those things. It helps the network. It helps the channel. It helps my show, CTC, by the Refuse to Lose Network. Then we got other shows, like we got the main show featuring Joe, Tomo, and Dave, which they were all live today to talk about the Rams and the Titans. We have BWT, Baseball with Teddy. Yankees got a 3-0 W today. He's a Yankees fan, but all your baseball content goes through him. We have FFC, Fantasy Football with Coach Coombs. Again, fantasy football season is right around the corner. Today's August 23rd. Season starts September 5th. It's probably 12, 14 days, something around that. Don't quote me on the total amount of days. It was like 2-3 weeks into the NFL season. Then we have Dave's Doghouse, where he makes dogs and puts dogs in the doghouse. Highlights and lowlights of sports. So check out Dave's Doghouse. We have Real Ballers Only NBA content ran through by Vaughn, talking about NBA players, your diamonds in the roughs, drafts, off-season moves, guys that people don't want to talk about. He talk about guys that people talk about too, but he try to get you a little bit more in depth. We have Kings Talk with Joe Jordan, all Kings Talk, Sacramento Kings, stuff like that, through Joe Jordan. And last but certainly not least, we have In the Red Corner featuring Ty, Ricky, and Tomo. Now, last year, I did this with a guest, and this is one thing we got to deal with my room. Last year we had a guest, and I brought the same guest back, friend of the show. He's here a lot. My boy Ace. How you doing, Ace?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me back again.
No problem. Any words you want to say before we get started?
Nothing but, like and subscribe. CTC, best show out here.
Appreciate that. And I know what I'm going to say before we get started. We have to run a 10 to 15 second commercial break because I left my journal where I record at. So I can't tell you about teams if I don't got my notes. So I'll be right back.
Refuse to lose, I'm built to win. Applied myself, I filled it in. No time for the doubt, they counted me out, I'm getting it in, yeah. No time for no loss, I'm paying the cost, I'm in it to win, yeah. Refuse, mine, it can't be.
15 seconds and we right back. Sorry about that. But yeah, we got our 10 teams. I have 10. He has 10. Now we do have a lot of similar, at least over half of them are similar. I said we got 6 of them that are similar. I let the cat out the bag. We got 6 teams that are similar, 4 teams that we thought differently on, but not necessarily differently, but 4 other teams we felt you should look out for. We're going to start with my first pick. Well, not really my first pick, but my first different pick. Before we do that, I got to address some comments, though. First comment, my uncle. Shout out my uncle. He said done and done. So I'm assuming liking and commenting, or liking and subscribing. Whatever one you do, I appreciate it. Second comment don't like as much. He said, "Let's go blue." Wrong episode, man. If you want to see something about them, the team up north, check out the Big Ten preview right now. We talking about the mid majors, the teams that don't get a lot of love, the teams people like, oh, I ain't watching that school. We talking about them today. But my first different pick from Ace, y'all know me, man. Jacksonville State. As a team that I think you should look out for in the group of 5 this year. They were coming off of They were coming off of an 8-4 season, 6-2 in Conference USA. First year playing at the FBS level. Got their first double year against UTEP at home. And it was just exciting to watch. Jacksonville State thought the entire year. Shout out Rich Rod. They also got a bowl win their first year. Now, there normally wasn't supposed to be in a bowl game, but because of lack of bowl eligible teams, they were able to get one. And then they beat University of Louisiana in a thriller of an overtime game in the New Orleans Bowl, 34-31. So shout out Jacksonville State with their first ever FBS bowl win. They returned 5 offensive starters and 4 defensive starters, mainly being tight end Sean Brown. 19 catches, 294 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Then you have Michael Petway at wide receiver, 17 catches, 196 yards, and a touchdown. Ron Wiggins returns at running back, 92 carries, 268 yards, and 5.1 a carry at 6 touchdowns. Fred Perry at safety, 75 total, 49 solos, 5 pass breakups, a pick, and 3 forced fumbles. DeRock Swain, defensive end, 30 total tackles, 14 solos, 4 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. And Derek Carter at corner, 44 total tackles, 26 solos, 8 pass breakups. Now, they did lose a lot of pieces, including Zion Webb at quarterback, which they was rotating between Zion Webb and Logan Smothers throughout the season. With Zion Webb mainly, 111 of 220, 1,437 yards, 50.5 completion percentage, 6 touchdowns and 8 picks. 708 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. Lose Malik Jackson at running back, 146 carries, 897 yards, 6.1 a carry and 7 touchdowns. Lose Perry Carter at wide receiver, 38 catches, 672 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Chris Hardy, like I said, man, losing him. He flashed off the screen to me on the edge. 60 total tackles, 33 solos, 8.5 sacks, a pass breakup, and a pick. Now gone to Ole Miss. And they lost Larry Worth, the linebacker, now going to Arkansas. 63 total tackles, 28 solos, 3 sacks, 2 PBUs, a pick, and a forced fumble. Last but certainly not least, Kobe Fuqua. He was like a defensive back, so like a safety hybrid with a nickel. 86 total tackles, 45 solos, 2.5 sacks, a pass breakup, a pick, and a forced fumble. They bring in the 116th overall recruiting class, 97th in transfers. They bring over guys like Zion Turner, looking to be the starter at quarterback, coming over from UConn. Where he was 142 of 236, 1,249 yards, 9 touchdowns, 7 picks. Samario Rudolph, wide receiver from UAB, 25 catches, 205 yards, and a touchdown. Marvin Joseph transfers in as a linebacker from FAU, 24 total tackles, 10 solos, and 2.5 sacks. Antonio Carter transfers in at linebacker from Notre Dame, 8 total tackles, 7 solos, and a forced fumble. And Andrew Paul transfers in the running back from Georgia. 29 carries, 129 yards, 4.4 carry, and a touchdown. Now, the schedule, I'm going to read off the schedule, and I'm going to go W or L as I read off the schedule. Coastal Carolina, first game at home, I have as a W. Louisville on the road, I have as an L. Eastern Michigan on the road, I have as a W. Southern Mississippi, I have as a W. Kennesaw State, I have as a W. Kennesaw State's first year on the FBS level and in the Conference USA. New Mexico State, W. Middle Tennessee State, W. I do have them losing on the road to Liberty. I do have them beating Louisiana Tech on the road, beating FIU at home, beating San Francisco State at home. And I do have them losing to Western Kentucky on the road. Western Kentucky is not a slouch of a Conference USA team. I think being on the road, that game could get to the next state if they can't get into what they normally can get into. That puts them at a 9-3, 6-2 conference record, which is a really good record, step forward to last year. Now, my biggest issue with Jackson was the consistent passing game last year, which I think Zion Turner can step in and fix that, hopefully, with Rich Rodriguez and his fast-paced offense. And if they can get that going, Jack State can be even more dangerous than I believe. But that's my first pick. I'm going to now pass the podium to my boy Ace, and he's going to talk to you about his first different team, Appalachian State.
Yeah, so my first team was App State. This is a team that always has a lot of history of being like a fairly good mid-major team, can pull off upsets. I'm not too sure if that's necessarily going to be the case with them this year. I don't think that let me pull up their schedule real quick. I don't necessarily think they play anybody that they'd upset this year. However, I do think they're going to be a good team. So the main person I'm excited for them returning is the quarterback, Joey Aguilar. He broke some records last year. He was definitely a very good playmaker for them, and they bring back a trio of running backs that accounted for at least 1,300 yards. Bringing back they've top 4 wide receivers and their top tight end. So the offense essentially, except for the offensive line, which will have to prove itself, but they're basically bringing back most of their production from last year. So and the offense was pretty explosive. They had some pretty great games. The defense, they have a lot of young talent on every level. They got Ethan Johnson, cornerback. They have Nate Johnson, the linebacker, both returning. And the defense led, I think, the conference in interceptions too. So, bringing back core people at every level will definitely help them kind of replicate the season that they had last year. They went about 9-5. I have them going 8-4, and we'll get into the schedule a little bit. My main concern with them, though, because they have a lot of 50-50 games, as do most of these teams on this list that we're gonna have. Will they be able to stop the run? Because they have a pretty undersized defensive line. So I think if there's any place that's going to get them, it's definitely going to be that. Now let me find
Shout out to Barnyon Hampton, went crazy against App State last year.
exactly. All right, now let's get into the schedule. So they play ETSU the first game. I have that as a W. They play Clemson. Like I said, no upsets this year. That's going to be an L. They're going to play East Carolina next. That's going to be at East Carolina. That's going to be a W for them. Next, they play South Alabama at home. I have them winning that as well. Then comes Liberty. That's a team that I also have on my list, and I think they're going to suffer their second L there, and that's going to be at home. Next week they play Marshall away, and they have them getting the W there. Then they play Louisiana and Lafayette. I think that's going to be another tough game for them as well. I don't think that's going to be a slouch of a team this year, so I have them getting an L there. I have them playing Georgia State at home and winning against Old Dominion at home the next week. Then they go to Coastal Carolina, where I see them getting another L in a possible 50-50 game. Then next week they play James Madison at home, and I have them winning. Then final game of the year they play Georgia Southern away, and I have them winning that as well with a record of 8-4 and 6-2 in the conference.
All right. Not a bad pick. I actually like the pick. A lot of people are high on Appalachian State. I've seen some people even put them in the playoff. So I like the pick, Ace. I really do. We're gonna move on. Oh, go ahead.
I said I can't go that far.
Hey, look, I didn't see it either, but you know what I'm saying? Some people just hire them. I gotta go in the comments real quick before I get to my second pick. So my uncle again, he says, yes, sir. So I appreciate you for, doing those things. He said bad flashbacks of App State. Bad to you, great for me. Love that memory. And then he said 2 good picks, which we appreciate that. We're gonna move on to my second pick. Hey man, right by you. My second pick is University of South Florida. Y'all been hearing me saying it in multiple shows that South Florida was going to be on my 10 teams to look out for. And we finally here. I get to finally talk about them. Coming off of a 6-6, 4-4 record, which allowed them to go bowling, and they beat Syracuse badly, 45-0 in the Boca Raton Bowl. They returned 10 offensive starters and 8 defensive starters, which is another reason why I'm so high on the University of South Florida. They returned, namely, Byron Brown, quarterback who started over Jerry Bohannon. Jerry Bohannon came over from Baylor. Byron Brown, the freshman, took over and started, went 276 of 426, 3,292 yards, 64.8%. Completion percentage, 26 touchdowns to 11 picks. So he has to cut down on the interceptions. He had 809 rushing yards with 11 rushing touchdowns, so 37 total touchdowns. Then you bring back Sean Atkins at wide receiver, 92 catches for 1,054 yards and 7 touchdowns. You bring back Naeem Simmons at wide receiver, 39 catches for 637 yards and 5 touchdowns. Naquan Wright at running back, 180 carries for 797 yards, 4.4 carry, and 8 touchdowns. You have Jalen Schuler at linebacker returning, 97 total tackles, 45 solos, 2 sacks, 5 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. Jalen Stokes returning on the defensive back, 61 total tackles, 42 solos, 2 sacks, a pass breakup, 2 picks, and a forced fumble. Kaquavius Berry Hill at safety, 56 total tackles, 36 solos, 2 pass breakups, and 3 picks. Taven Ward on as a defensive back as well, 38 total tackles, 26 solos, 8 pass breakups, and 2 picks. Now you do lose DeQuan Evans, defensive back, 64 total tackles, 47 solos, 4 sacks, 7 pass breakups, and a pick. And Caffrey Brown, 27 catches, 435 yards, and 5 touchdowns, now going to Arkansas wide receiver. They bring in the 67th overall recruiting class, 94th in transfers. They bring over a guy, again, when I looked at the stats, I was surprised he had no touchdowns, and Abdul Rahim Yassin, transfer wide receiver from Purdue, 25 catches, 329 yards. Tayron Keith comes over at running back, who actually took over the Bowling Green spot. I forgot. I think his name is Perry Orth, the running back that got hurt. I'm so sorry. I don't know. I think it is. I'm not sure. I'll Google it in a second. But yeah, he took over for him, and he ended up having 66 carries, 390 yards, 5.9 a carry, 4 touchdowns for Bowling Green. Brett Austin comes in a cornerback from JMU, 12 total tackles, 5 solos, a pass breakup, a pick, and a touchdown. DeMarco Augustine transfers in at safety from Youngstown State, 22 total tackles, 12 solos, and 3 pass breakups. Some numbers I had for South Florida: 17th in total offense, 115th in total defense, tied 32nd in scoring offense, tied 109th in scoring defense, 32nd in rushing, 47th in rushing defense, 31st in passing, and 129th in passing defense. The games that I watched besides the bowl game of South Florida is in the numbers show that they were really good offense. Even that UTSA game, it started off with fireworks against UTSA. Then they just couldn't stop UTSA. Frank Harris was going down the field. It was a nice back and forth for a while until UTSA just took off because South Florida couldn't stop them. And that was their problem a lot throughout the year. The offense, to hold up their end of the bargain. The defense would just keep allowing other offenses to score, and then South Florida would get outpaced. But with all that experience coming back next year, I see the defense holding up this end of the bargain, the offense getting more explosive. But with all that being said, let's get into the schedule. First game is against Bethune-Cookman. I have that as a W. Second game is at Alabama. That's an L. Third game is at Southern Mississippi. I have as a W. Fourth game is at home against Miami. I have as an L, but it could be a good one. Then the fifth game is at Tulane. I also have an L. Tulane's another team that we may tell you to look out for. We have the next game against Memphis at home. I have this as a W. Against UAB at home, I have it as a W. At FAU, that's a W. Home against Navy, I have it as a W. On the road against Charlotte, I have it as a W. At home against Tulsa, I have it as a W. And on the road against Rice, I have it as a W to finish 9-3, 7-1 in conference. I'm really high on South Florida this year. They do have a bit of a tough schedule. Their non-con schedule is crazy with Alabama and the U, especially catching the U at a time like they are now. But I think they can roll through the American and possibly be fighting for a chance for an American Conference Championship. That is my pick. My second pick, we're going to now move on to Ace's second pick, UNLV.
Yeah, I think you have a great pick with South Florida. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that game at Miami is definitely going to be a fun one to watch. So with UNLV, this is a team that I believe was in the Mountain West Conference Championship last year. I think they lost to Boise State, if I'm not mistaken. And with that, they had a pretty explosive offense. The thing that does kind of stick out to me is that they lost their quarterback who went to USC, Jaden Mayava is his last name, I believe. He's a guy who could throw and run, and he's going to who's it at USC? Lincoln Riley. You can't really blame him for going there and doing that.
I can. I don't know why, because I think Lincoln Riley likes Miller Moss a lot, which Miller Moss, I believe, is the starter. Maybe he's coming to take over after Miller Moss is gone. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, he was a freshman, I believe, so he still got time. But even with that loss, they bring back 4 of their starters from the offensive line. That was pretty good, and they have Ricky White III, who is probably the best player that they have on the team. He was number 3 in receptions, or receiving yards last year behind Malik Neighbors and Roma Duze. They also have Jacob DeJesus, who's a great receiver as well, and an even better returner. So I think that the offense is definitely going to have enough to be intact. They have 2 transfers coming in. I think both from the FCS level. Both are pretty dual threat quarterbacks. So whoever battles it out and wins there, I think that he'll definitely have a lot of talent to work with. As far as the defense is returning 7 starters, 3 of which were all conference and all in the back 7 of the defense. 2 at linebacker, I think 1 in the secondary. Speaking of the secondary, it was completely overhauled in the offseason. They with transfers. They have 2 corners, I believe, coming from the SEC who have talent. So I think that the defense might have even improved, So I think that they could definitely, make a push to win the Mountain West this year. So let's get into the schedule. First game, we have them at Houston. I have them pulling out a W there. The next week, they are home against Utah Tech, which should be a W. The next week is a pretty tough game for them. They're going to be at Kansas. I have them getting the L in Kansas. That next week, they are at home against Fresno State, which should be a pretty important game on their schedule. I do have them winning that game. The next week, they are at home again against Syracuse, and I have them getting an L there. That next week, they are away at Utah State, where they will get a W. The next week, away at Oregon State, which I believe will be another W. Another L, I'm sorry. That next week, home versus Boise State. That's a toss-up game for me. I have it as a W or a L. For this sake, I think it'll be a W just because they're home. But, I think that's going to be a game that pretty much kind of determines how the Mountain West is going to go. So, we'll give them that for the sake of being home. The next week, they're at Hawaii, where they get a W. Home against San Diego State, they get a W. Away at San Jose State, a W. And then home, the last game, University of Nevada, where I have them getting a W. You just said UNR. I was like, what is that? So I have them going 9-3.
All right, UNLV is a great pick, like you said, man. Building off the Mountain West Conference Championship appearance where they did lose to Boise State. Clear. One thing I got clear real quick. Perry Orth is a former South Carolina quarterback. I don't know how he got in my head, but that was a former South Carolina quarterback. The name I was looking for was Terrion Stewart, and Bowling Green did have a quarterback, Camden Orth, which that's probably why I got in my head. But Terrion Stewart was the one that got hurt, and Taywan Keith took over for. But I like the pick. I love the UNLV pick. Like I said, I was about to say, you're going to have to pick between UNLV and Boise State. I'm not going to let you just say, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to go with them just because they're home. But to be honest,
I feel you, though. I feel you. Because even the USF Memphis game, like, I went with USF because they was at home, but obviously Memphis couldn't win that game.
Yeah,
so I definitely feel you.
I think Ricky I have White. A lot of games like that.
Yeah, shout out Ricky White. You want to talk about bad flashbacks? Ricky White went for, I think, 200 against Michigan 2020. So, yeah, shout out Ricky White, MSU legend.
Ricky White's definitely going to have a season. I think that's what I'm most confident for this team.
Yes, sir. I'm so happy for my boy transferred out of MSU and doing big things at UNLV. But we're going to get to my third pick. Miami of Ohio. And spoiler alert, this pick right here is my MAC Conference champion. I have Miami of Ohio winning the MAC. Now, Ace might disagree with me, but hey, I'm going with the reigning MAC champs. Miami of Ohio is coming off a 10-2, 7-1 season. They won the MAC championship last year, 23-14 against Toledo. While Brett Gabbert was out for the year, getting hurt against Toledo in the game they had earlier. They lost to Cure Bowl 13-9 versus App State, which is which is Ace's pick to look out for. Which was it was a tough game. They returned 7 offensive starters and 6 defensive starters, mainly being the guy that got hurt and Brett Gabbert. He went 111 for 187, 1,634 yards, 59.4, excuse me, completion percentage, 14 touchdowns to 5 picks. So he's looking to build off that, coming off an injury. They returned K. McDonald at wide receiver, 28 catches, 355 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Matt Salopik, linebacker, with 144 total tackles, 75 solos, 3 sacks, 3 pass breakups, and a pick. And then another linebacker in Ty Wise with 122 total tackles, 61 solos, 8 sacks, 5 pass breakups, and an interception. Returned Brian Egwo, defensive lineman, with 62 total tackles, 31 solos, 8 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Returned Rayvon Strader, defensive back, with 57 total tackles, 40 solos, 12 pass breakups, and a pick. But they did lose Rashad Amos, who was the backbone to this offense, especially when Brett Gabbert got hurt. I know Avion Smith was trying to get the pass game going. Avion Smith can use his legs, but Rashad Amos was the engine for the Miami offense. He's now gone to Ole Miss with 210 carries, 1,075 yards, 5.1 a carry, and 13 touchdowns. Lost Gage Labordane, who went to South Carolina, wide receiver, 42 catches, 679 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Lost Jaquiz Warren, the safety, with 71 total tackles, 46 solos, and 4 pass breakups, who went to Robert Morris. Lost Caden Woolard, the team leader in sacks, with 9.5 sacks, 41 total tackles, 19 solos, a pass breakup, and 2 forced fumbles. He went to Oklahoma. And they lost Yaston McKee, a defensive back, with 58 total tackles, 34 solos, 11 pass breakups, and a pick. No, 4 interceptions, excuse me. They had the 108th overall recruiting class, 128th in transfers. Dylan Downey transfers in at running back, so he's looking to replace Rashad Amos, coming in from Purdue. 48 carries, 211 yards, 4.4 carry, and a touchdown. And Salvio Frazier comes in at D-line, looking to hopefully replace Caden Woolard. 32 total tackles, 11 solos, half a sack, and a pass breakup coming from Mercer. All right, so look, before I read these numbers, I just want you to know that Miami of Ohio survived literally on defense. Super defensive team. Offensively, like I said, man, couldn't really get it going, especially with Brett Gabbert going down. Started to struggle offensively, but the defense, they carried the team and led them to a MAC championship and almost a Cure Bowl win. But they were 108th in total offense, 26th on total defense, 77th in scoring offense, 8th in scoring defense, 64th in the rushing, 34th in rush defense, 118th in passing, 27th in pass defense. They were tied 33rd in the nation in team sacks and tied 7th in red zone defense. We'll get into the schedule. First game is at Northwestern. I have as an L. Second game is Cincy at home. I have as another L. Third game is at Notre Dame. I have an L, and you might be saying, Carl, you got them going 0-3. Why is this a team to look out for? Fourth game, UMass, non-con, which I believe UMass goes into the MAC next year. If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But that's a W. Then we go at Toledo in a rematch where I have as a W. At Eastern Michigan, W. Ohio, W. Central Michigan, W. At Ball State, W. Kent State, W. Northern Illinois, W. And at Bowling Green to finish the season with a W, going 9-3, 8-0, and playing for another MAC conference championship, which I believe they will win. Ace, talk about Toledo or anything you want to say about Miami of Ohio before we go to Toledo.
No, I think that's a great pick. To be honest, it was between them and the team that I picked because I had to get somebody from the MAC.
Cool. Go ahead and talk to us about Toledo, your third different team.
All right. Well, Toledo has been a pretty good team in the MAC for the past few years. As you stated earlier, the 23 MAC runner-ups for the conference last year. I think one glaring thing about this team from a difference from last year is that their offensive line is completely gone. So along with that, their top running backs. I believe both of them ended up transferring out. Penny Boone for sure is gone, who I think was the MAC Player of the Year or something like that.
When they say it was Daquan Finn, but go ahead, I'm gonna Google it.
Okay. They lost their top guard as well. I believe they lost their quarterback too. So, this is a team that lost a lot of its offense, but it does return
Daquan Finn, Baylor.
Yeah, so it lost it returns basically their top 3 receivers. and which I think is probably the best receiving core in the MAC, which is something that Miami of Ohio doesn't have. It's like Toledo's the opposite. They have way better offense, especially last year. Like, and it's a consequence of having such an explosive offense. Those players just end up getting snatched up out of bigger programs, and it's just part of life in the MAC. That's why it's such a volatile conference every year. It's such a different team that pops up and that can do damage. But with that, their defense still does return a lot of players. I think their D line is deep in experience, which should help them. The secondary was ranked 16th in the nation in pass defense, and they're bringing back basically everybody, but they do have to replace their cornerback, Quinyon Mitchell, who's in the NFL now. But other than that, I think that this team has enough to, possibly compete for the championship again next year if things can go right and they can, get the offense together in time. One interesting fact about them is that they are 18-0 over the last 2 seasons when they complete over 55% of their passes. So obviously, it's a key component of their, what makes them successful as a team. And I think with the receivers that they still have there, that they will be able to do that.
All right, so
Now
I got you real quick. Offensive Player of the Year was Penny Boone, but the MVP of the MAC was Daquan Finn. It's called the Vern Smith Leadership Award as the top player in the MAC. And then my linebacker, Matt Slopick, won Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, and that's crazy to think that they didn't win.
Then it was crazy. They didn't win what? The MAC championship?
Yeah.
Nah, I ain't gonna lie, it was crazy. I ain't gonna lie. I definitely thought Toledo was gonna win.
Yeah, I mean their offense was crazy. Like they was putting up points in bunches. But all right, let's get to this schedule. So first game they have at home against Duquesne, which I have as a W.
Duquesne.
I always say Duquesne. I don't know why. But I don't understand how it's Duquesne, but whatever. We gonna go.
Hey, I feel you. Definitely. The reason why I know that is because somebody that graduated from Duquesne came to my high school. I was in high school and told us.
Okay. Either way, I think I'm gonna stick with mine though. Next week we have them at home versus UMass, which is another W. Then I have them going on a little bit of a losing streak. 3 straight losses, 2 away, 1 at home. Versus Mississippi State. While I do think that it is probably a winnable game for them, I think that athletes would be the difference in that game. So having them getting the L against Mississippi State, going to Western Kentucky, which is never going to be an easy game. I have them getting the L there. Then I have them at home against Miami of Ohio, and I actually have them getting an L. Next, they play Buffalo away, where I have them winning. Then again on the road versus Northern Illinois with another W. A win at home against Bowling Green. A win away at Eastern Michigan. Another win home against Central Michigan. Another win at home against Ohio. And for the last game of the season, away at Akron, another win. I have them going 9-3, 7-1 in the conference. I think you muted.
I am. All right, bet. So 9-3. All right, I'm surprised we agree on the Toledo, Miami being Toledo. I thought we might have a difference there, but
nah, I do think that the defense will probably be the key difference in that game, and it's no guarantee that Toledo is going to have that offense together in time.
Yeah,
or
and
the offensive line.
Yeah, my whole thing with the Toledo pick of why I'm going with Miami of Ohio is because one, Miami of Ohio is like one of the better MAC schools. You got, like you said, Toledo, but Toledo loses so much. They lose Daquan Finn, like you said, Penny Boone, Quinyon Mitchell. They also lost the corner opposite of Quinyon Mitchell. So they lose so much. The line, it's so much they lose. Kent State has been on a downslope. Buffalo been on a downslope. I would pick Ohio. Ohio quarterback in the bowl game against Coastal showed some promise, but I don't know if I want to roll with Ohio yet. But I would say they're one of the teams that could win the MAC. Ball State's been on a down slope. Northern Illinois, they was on a down slope. They had that 1 year with Rocky.
I do think Bowling Green could be a sneaky team also in the MAC, though.
I got to see it.
They bring back a lot of people, but like you said, When have you ever been like, oh yeah, Bowling Green is going to be?
I definitely have to see it with Bowling Green. And Coach Campbell at Toledo is really good. So I'm not mad at your pick for Toledo winning the MAC. I mean, obviously, I hope mine wins, so I could be right. But I'm not mad at your pick nonetheless. I think they see each other again for a rematch in the MAC championship.
I also kind of think that, there's a range that this team can go on. I could easily see them losing like 4 games. It's just,
off of inexperience, stuff like that. Because Daquan Finn, he's been the light there for the past 3 years.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see.
All right, so got some comments to read real quick before I get into my last different team, which Ace and myself might hate this. He said Boise will be a fight. I might have read that already, but yes, it will. He was talking about Boise State UNLV. He said, come on, man. That was to me bringing up Ricky White against Michigan. And then he said, how much longer do the MAC last? I'm assuming the MAC segment he was talking about, which is basically over. But appreciate the comments nonetheless. My final different team, which I'm actually shocked that we both not covering this team, to be completely honest with you. Notre Dame. Now, technically, Notre Dame is not in a group of 5. They're independent, but they're not in the conference either. So I just lumped them in the group of 5 to look out for. Notre Dame, man. Notre Dame is coming off of a 9-3 season. They won the Sun Bowl 40-8 versus Oregon State, but Jonathan Smith wasn't there. A lot of the players weren't there because he was over there trying to get ready to help my MSU boys. But they returned 3 offensive starters and 5 defensive starters, which, not going to lie, is a huge overhaul that they have to make. But when I get into the schedule, you'll see why I said look out for them. They returned Jeremiah Love at running back, who had 71 carries for 385 yards, 5.4 carry, and a touchdown. Mitchell Evans at tight end, 29 catches, 422 yards, and a touchdown. Jordan Faison at wide receiver, 19 catches, 322 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Jack Kaiser, who I thought was gone last year after the last year, but he's back at linebacker, and hey, he's like that. So 62 total tackles, 41 solos, 1.5 sacks, a pass breakup, a pick, and a forced fumble. Xavier Watts comes back in that secondary at safety, which is huge. 52 total tackles, 30 solos, half a sack, 4 pass breakups, 7 picks, a forced fumble, and a touchdown. Benjamin Morrison is only in his junior year, which this looks to be his last year in college. Cornerback, 31 total tackles, 25 solos, 10 pass breakups, and 3 picks. And Howard Cross on the defensive line with 66 total tackles, 28 solos, 2 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles. Now, they did lose Sam Hartman at quarterback, but he didn't have the year that we all expected him to have at Notre Dame. Now, I do feel like that receiving core wasn't as good as people thought it would be last year. I wouldn't go that far. I was about to say I would almost say that Wake Forest receiving core that he had the year he made it to the ACC championship was better. I'm lying. Just A.T. Perry might have been the best receiver he played with, even if you include those Notre Dame receivers, in my opinion. I will say that. But he went 191 to 301, 2,689 yards, 63.5 completion percentage, 24 touchdowns to 8 picks. Now on the Commanders. Valdrick Estime is now gone, the running back who had 210 carries for 1,341 yards, 6.4 carry, 18 touchdowns on the Broncos. Chris Tyree, the wide receiver, is now gone, 26 catches, 484 yards, 3 touchdowns now at UVA. J.D. Bertrand is now gone, 76 total tackles, 41 solos, 2.5 sacks, 5 pass breakups and a forced fumble. He's now gone to the Falcons. Javante Jean-Baptiste, defensive end, 49 total tackles, 21 solos, 5 sacks, and a pass breakup is now on the Commanders. And Maris Lufo, linebacker, 44 total tackles, 23 solos, 3 sacks, pass breakup, and a forced fumble is now on the Cowboys. They came in with the 10th overall recruiting class, 41st in transfers, which is really good for Marcus Freeman. He bring in Riley Leonard, who we all love at Duke. Got hurt at Duke, so last year numbers don't look so great. He went 95 of 165, 1,102 yards, 57.6 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns and 3 picks, 352 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns coming over from Duke. Chris Mitchell, which was a huge get, probably the best receiver that they got in a while. Well, I wouldn't say in a while, but he's better than what Sam Hartman had last year. 64 catches for 1,118 yards, 7 touchdowns coming over from FIU. Then Bo Collins comes over from Clemson, 38 catches, 510 yards, and 3 touchdowns at the receiver spot. Jordan Clark, the safety, son of Ryan Clark, comes over from Arizona State. 50 total tackles, 30 solos, and 9 pass breakups. And then Ron Hurd comes over from Northwestern, defensive back with 85 total tackles, 54 solos, a sack, 4 pass breakups, a pick, and 2 forced fumbles. Notre Dame was 29th for total offense, 5th in total defense, 7th for scoring offense, 7th for scoring defense, 27th in rushing, 26th on the ground on defense, 48th in passing, 3rd in pass defense, 2nd in red zone defense, and tied 10th for passes intercepted in the country. Now, this is the schedule where I say you should look out for Notre Dame. First game at Texas A&M, W. Second game is Northern Illinois, no dispute, right? W. Third game at Purdue, W. Fourth game, Miami of Ohio, as I already said, is a W. Fifth game, Louisville. I do have it as a W since it's at Notre Dame. Sixth game, Stanford, W. Seventh game, it is a neutral site against Georgia Tech, but I still have that as a W. And then the eighth game, another neutral site, I believe, against Navy, but I have that as a W. Ninth game versus Florida State at home, W. 10th game at home against Virginia, W. 11th game, neutral site against Army, W. And the last game, which is their only third road game, is USC, which I do have them as a W. So because of the schedule, I have Notre Dame going 12-0, and that's going to put them in the playoffs. It's going to put them in the playoffs, even though I feel like the schedule isn't as tough. But going 12-0, the committee, Notre Dame got the history, the what's the word, tradition. I think they make the playoffs as a 12-0 team. Ace, go ahead.
All right.
Wait, my bad, I gotta introduce it. Ace's last team that is different from mine is going to be JMU. Now, I don't know if this is his champion or not, but it's JMU.
Yeah, so interesting thing about this team. I'm picking this team just because I have an affinity for them. I don't necessarily think that this team is going to win the Sun Belt or anything like that. I mean, they could be competitive, they could not be. I just think it's going to be interesting just to watch them, and to see the transition because Kurt Cignetti is gone. He's gone to Indiana. They lost their top quarterback, who was pretty great. He went to Texas State. His name is escaping me right now. Jordan McLeod. This offense basically lost 90% of its production. So I'm just interested to see how it's going to be. They do bring in a new head coach who was actually pretty great in the FCS level. He was coaching at Holy Cross, who had like a pretty great run in the FCS and averaged like 37 points per game. They had a very effective run game, and I think that'll help them with these two transferred running backs, George Pettaway coming from North Carolina and Ayo Adeyi from North Texas. I think that'll definitely help them out. As far as everywhere else on the offense, obviously people have to prove themselves. They're getting Dylan Morris, who's a transfer from Washington. He was the backup to Michael Penix. I think maybe he can help bring in some firepower. I'm not too sure of how he performed because I didn't really see him, obviously. But, I just think that this is going to be an interesting team to watch and to see how they take on the challenge of this season. The defense has a lot of questions, and there's going to be a lot of transfers looking to take in major roles. But also, it's the Sun Belt, and I don't always think the Sun Belt is like just this tough conference with all these elite teams that you have to look out for. Granted, yeah, there are some that will definitely pose a challenge, but I think that there's a winning culture at James Madison, and I'm just interested to see how it'll evolve from here.
You might have pissed some people off, Ace. I ain't even gonna lie.
Huh?
Just pissed some people off, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
It's all good. I just know what I know. I'm no expert. But let's get into the schedule. Now, I do have this team being fairly decent. I think they'll write off a few wins. So first game I have them away at Charlotte. I have that being a W. Next week they are home against Gardner-Webb, and that's a W. Then they go to Chapel Hill to play North Carolina. Obviously that's an L. Well, not obviously, but it should be an L. Then the next week they're home versus Ball State. I have that as a W. The next week away at University of Louisiana, I have that as a L. The next week they are playing Coastal Carolina at home. It has that as a W. The next week Georgia Southern away, which is a L. Then they take on Southern Mississippi at home. I have that as a W. Then they take on Georgia State at home, which I have that being an L for them. Then they're away at Old Dominion, where I have them squeaking out a W. Away at App State after that, where I have them getting an L. And then home versus Marshall, where I have them getting a W, where they are 7-5 and 4-4 in the conference.
I'm not mad at JMU. Hey, look, if I had enough room to squeeze JMU in, I would, but I got a different Sun Belt champion. I ain't even gonna lie to you, I got 3 American teams that I previewed. So I didn't have room to fit JMU in 10, but they would have been like 11, 12. The only game that I don't agree with is Georgia State. I think they beat Georgia State. Georgia State loses a lot as well. They lose their head coach. He's now gone. So I think they could get Georgia State. But that's our different teams. Now we collab. Like I said, we got 6 teams that we think that you should look out for as well, that, similar. And we're going to start with Boise State. Y'all heard us talk about them earlier. Well, yep, we think you should look out for Boise State. Now, Boise State is my Mountain West winner. I don't know about Ace. Is that your Mountain West winner?
Yes, I do have them as my Mountain West winner, actually.
All right, so let's get into it. Coming off of a Mountain West championship, led by none other than Spencer Danielson, who was the interim at the time, now the head coach. They were coming off of a 7-5, 62 season. They turned their season around at 5-5. I guess you could say turning around because they won 2 straight, won the Mountain West, and then they lost the LA Bowl, but they lost to UCLA in the LA Bowl. They returned 7 offensive starters and 8 defensive starters, namely Ashton Jeanty at running back, do-it-all running back, could be in the running for the Doak Walker this year. 220 carries, 1,344 yards, 6.1 a carry, and 14 touchdowns, while also adding 43 catches, 569 yards, and 5 touchdowns and receiving. I ain't gonna lie, I saw his name on the Fred Biletnikoff preseason watch list. That was kind of crazy to me, but shout out to Ashton Jeanty. They returned Maddox Madsen. Maddox Madsen, quarterback who was named the starter over this weekend over Malachi Nelson. He went 81 to 132, 1,191 yards, 61.4 completion percentage, 9 touchdowns and 3 picks. They bring back Amarion McCoy, cornerback, with 31 total tackles, 24 solos, a sack, 5 pass breakups, and 3 picks. Bring back Ahmad Hussein, defensive end, with 53 total tackles, 30 solos, 12.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Alexander Tubner, safety, 85 total tackles, 50 solos, 5 pass breakups, and a pick. They do lose Taylor Green, quarterback, 121 of 212, 1,752 yards, 57.1 completion percentage, 11 touchdowns and 9 picks, 436 rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns, now going to Arkansas. George Halani, the running back, 134, 748, 5.6 a carry and 7 touchdowns, trying to make the Seahawks. And Eric McAllister, wide receiver, 47 catches, 873 yards, 5 touchdowns, transferring to TCU. They have the 74th overall recruiting class, 89th in transfers. Ace, give me something about Boise State.
Yeah, so like you said, Ashton Jeanty, everything kind of starts with that guy. He's definitely going to be their workhorse. And behind the line that's returning 4 starters, I think he's definitely going to have a great year. Like you say, he's definitely going to be in the running for the Doak Walker Award, and it'll be well-deserved. Maddox Madsen definitely surprised a lot of people, I'm sure, by winning the starting job. But I think that he does have a challenge ahead of him with the wide receivers. It's definitely going to be a room that has to prove itself again, especially with McAllister leaving for TCU. Very talented linebackers, Andrew Simpson and Marco Notarini. The leading tackler at safety, Alexander Tubner, comes back as well. So I think this is a team that has the experience, and it definitely has some key pieces returning 8 defensive starters to repeat what they did last year as far as being a great team in the Mountain West.
Yeah, I also had Andrew Simpson on my list as well, linebacker. Then they lose another. They lost 2 receivers. They lost Billy Bowen as well, with 28 catches, 383 yards, and a touchdown. So, like you said, man, it's that receiving core is going to be tough, especially the only transfer receiver. Well, the only transfer receiver with some experience they bring in is Cam Camper from Indiana, 17 catches, 285 yards, and a touchdown. So a lot of it is unproven. Which I mean, I like Madison. Madison. I was surprised, like you said, that he won the job over Malachi Nelson, just because Malachi Nelson he brings in. Well, I think he was a 5-star. He brings in that notoriety.
He was
Everybody
like
assumed that
the quarterback recruit, I think.
Yeah, everybody thought it was his job. But Mattis Maxson, from what I've been watching, when I watched him last year, he got moxie. He got toughness. He's a guy you can rally around. So that probably is what won him the job. And I believe Spencer Danielson, he likes that. He feeds off that. The team's going to feed off that. Genty and those guys. So I think that some might say it wasn't the right move. I think it's the right move, man.
No, I think it's going to be a team that's going to have to be a rugged physical team. So why would you pick the quarterback that identifies with that the most?
Yeah, so I really like the decision. They also bring over Davon Banks, a cornerback from Washington. His career numbers is 22 total tackles, 13 solos, 5 pass breakups, a pick and a forced fumble. And they bring some edge help from Ball State and Tavon Woodard, 16 total tackles, 5 solos, and 2 sacks. Now, some numbers for Boise State. They were 26 in total offense, 71st in total defense, 31st in scoring offense, 55th in scoring defense, 6th in rushing, 38th in rush defense, 65th in passing, and 107th in passing defense. So the secondary has to show itself up this year. If you have nothing else, we can get into the schedule.
No, yeah, we can get into it.
So first game on the road against Georgia Southern, I have as a W.
I have as a W as well.
Second game on the road against Oregon, I have as a L.
Have it as an L.
Third game, Portland State at home, W.
W.
Fourth game at home against Washington State, I have this as a W.
I have it as a W as well. I think they're going to pull it out.
All right. Fifth game, Utah State at home, I have it as a W.
I have it as a W.
Sixth game on the road against Hawaii. Now Hawaii is a tough place to play. Timmy Chang has got the Rainbow Warriors program feeling good, but I don't think it's enough. I think Boise State gets the W.
Yeah, I think Boise might have them physicality wise, so I think they're going to go in there and get a W too.
All right, then at UNLV on the road, I had Boise State winning that game.
I actually have Boise State losing that game, as previously stated. I just think, I think it's going to be a tough game, but I think on the road, maybe it'll affect them.
All right, then at home against San Diego State, I have as a W. Wait, hold on. I wrote San Diego State twice. Oops. I got the schedule pulled up on. Yeah, so San Diego State, W.
Yeah, I have it as a W as well.
Then at home against Nevada, I have it as a W.
It's a W.
Now, at San Jose State, I thought this game could get tricky with Ken Niumatalolo, or how do you pronounce his name? I'm so sorry, bro. I actually gave him an L. I feel like Ken could match the toughness, the discipline, and he will give them their only Mountain West L.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that, actually. I have it as a W, but I can definitely see them slipping up somewhere along the line.
Yep. And then at Wyoming, I have as a W.
At Wyoming, I have as a W.
Then final game at home against Oregon State, I have them winning.
I have them winning against Oregon State as well.
So that brings their record for me to 10-2, 6-1. Again, my Mountain West Conference champion, yours as well. Now, I do want to comment one thing real quick. Oregon State and Washington State both agreed to play Mountain West Conference schedules, like 6 games, but their wins and losses will not count towards any Mountain West standings. So they won't be playing for a Mountain West championship, nothing like that. They're just literally playing the games. So the wins we have against Washington State and Oregon State do not count towards the Mountain West record. All right. So we'll can move on to another Mountain West team. Now, I just picked this team because I really liked them. I liked them last year. I say by like game 3 or 4. I actually picked them to win the Mountain West. They didn't make the Mountain West championship. They actually lost the tiebreaker to both Boise State and UNLV, which is Fresno State, man. Fresno State coming off an 8-4, 4-4 season. They won the New Mexico Bowl against New Mexico State 37-10. They do have a new head coach in Tim Skipper. They do return 8 offensive starters, 6 defensive starters. The main starter was I really like him a lot. He was at UCF with Dylan Gabriel. Is Mikey Keene, the quarterback? He comes in last year going 283 or 422, 2,976 yards, 67.1% completion percentage, 24 touchdowns and 10 picks. So got to cut the picks down a little bit. They do return their backfield in Malik Sherrod and Elijah Gilliam, which I think that is huge for them. They returned Jalen Moss, who had 55 catches, 706 yards, and 6 touchdowns, and Magdalena, who I think is a sleeper for this Fresno State offense, bringing in 47 catches for 509 yards and 3 touchdowns. They returned Malachi Langley at linebacker, 84 total tackles, 38 solos and a sack. Dean Clark at defensive back with 83 total tackles, 47 solos, 3 pass breakups, and 3 picks. And Alzillian Hamilton, a defensive back with 31 total tackles, 22 solos, 8 pass breakups, and 2 picks. Now, they do lose 2 key receivers in Eric Brooks, who went 60 catches for 788 yards and 5 touchdowns, and Jalen Gill, with 49 catches, 516 yards, and 6 touchdowns, who's trying to make the Chargers. They do lose Carlton Johnson, cornerback with 54 total tackles, 38 solos, 7 pass breakups, and 4 picks. He's trying to make the Seahawks. They're also bringing the 87th overall recruiting class, 86 in transfers. Give me something about Fresno State, Ace.
Yeah, so Fresno State, it's a team that I was excited about too. They started 8-1 last year. Got off to a great start, I think, before they lost about 3 straight or something like that.
Yeah, they fell off the wagon at the end.
Yeah, they may have fell off the wagon, but they do bring it back a lot, especially on offense. They bring back their quarterback, 4 out of 5 of the linemen from last year, and 7 of their top 10 pass catches. This is a team that was one of the best in the country on third down. I think that they'll keep that momentum with the passing game and everything. I think it will be important for them to find some balance with the run game. I don't think that they were super effective in the run game as the pass was their bread and butter. But if they could add that to their bag, I think that the offense would definitely be potent. Like you stated earlier, the defense did lose a lot of people, basically all of their key contributors. So that'll be definitely something interesting to keep your eye on. But I do think that the secondary is still the strength of this team, of the defense rather. So I think that may be enough to keep them competitive and limit some explosive plays. So I think they'll be fairly successful this season.
All right, so hold on. I don't know why this drink is acting so slow, but I would say they were effective on the ground. Malik Sherrod had close to 1,000 yards, 966, and Elijah Gilliam had 397, so about 1,300 yards among the backs. But I will say that the passing game for sure was their bread and butter. That was for sure their MO. Like, the team is known to throw the ball, but I would say they had success running the ball. I think they're going to be a really good team. My record might surprise you, but yeah, I was super excited behind Fresno State as well. They bring in Raylan Sharp, a transfer wide receiver from Missouri State, who has 73 catches, 991 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And Shadon James, a wide receiver from Idaho State, who had 102 catches, 1,045 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So they're looking to replace Jalen Gill and Eric Brooks quickly with some transfers. They were 62nd in total offense, 56th in scoring, total defense, tied 45th in scoring offense, tied 46th in scoring defense, 116th rushing, 94th in rushing defense, 20th passing, and 35th in passing defense. Now, I will say that the secondary, like you said, in the defensive end was really their bread and butter. But one thing I wanted to bring up, I thought you would touch on it, that they do return a guy in Jacob Holmes on the defensive line who has 17 total tackles, 8 solos, 5 sacks, and a forced fumble. So I think that's huge for the Fresno State defense. But if you have nothing else, we can go on to the schedule.
No, let's do it.
All right, so I have the first game against Michigan. I have as an L. I was thinking about joking, but it's an L.
Yeah, it's an L for sure.
All right, then Sacramento State at home I have as a W.
W.
New Mexico State at home I have as a W.
W.
Then on the road to New Mexico I have as a W.
W.
On the road against UNLV, I have this as a W for Fresno State.
I'm gonna have this as an L for Fresno State. I think UNLV a little better team.
No, I agree. I think, well, not I agree. I can see where you're going with that. I don't know if I think UNLV is a better team, especially with what Fresno State returns. And I think Fresno State lost to UNLV last year in like a shootout. I think I'm trying to bring it up because I remember watching the game, and I think Mikey Keene might have had like some turnover late or something like that. I remember Jaden Maivia was playing his butt off that game. But like I said, I want to say UNLV. No, they beat UNLV 31-24. Never mind. At home against Washington State, I have as a W.
I have as a W.
On the road against Nevada, I has a W.
W.
Where am I? At home against San Jose State, I got a W.
W.
At home against Hawaii, I have it as a W.
I have as a W.
On the road against Air Force, I have it as a W.
I do too, actually.
All right. At home against Colorado State, Colorado State is going to be a good Mountain West team, but I have it as a W.
Yeah, I think it's going to be competitive, but I have them getting a W here too.
And the last game at home against UCLA, I have as an L.
I have as an L against UCLA too. I think if they were home, maybe a better fight, but not away.
All right. So my last game, not my last game, excuse me. My record, is 10-2, 7-0. I said at home against UCLA. I meant to say on the road. But 10-2, 7-0. And you might be saying, Carl, how do you have Boise State as your Mountain West champions if you have Fresno State going 7-0? Fresno State plays Boise State in the Mountain West Championship. I think Boise State is going to be the more physical team in that one. They have the more explosive weapon in that game, and I think Boise State pulls out the W against Fresno State.
Yes, I have them going 9-3.
Conference record.
I believe was it 7-1?
6-1.
6-1, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we both got the same Mountain West Championship game, Boise State, Fresno State.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. And we both have Boise State winning that one. So we move on to my Conference USA champion in Liberty. Liberty is coming off of a 12-0, 8-0 season where they won the Conference USA championship against New Mexico State 49-35. They did lose the Fiesta Bowl badly to Oregon 45-6, but they were clearly outmatched. Pac-12 runner-up versus a Conference USA champ. You're just happy to be there at that point. They returned 6 starters on offense and defense, namely Caden Salter, the quarterback, who went 177 to 290, 2,876 yards, 61 completion percentage, 32 touchdowns and 6 picks. But his legs is what makes him so effective, having 1,089 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. The quarterback that Jamie Chadwell would love to have at Liberty. Then they returned Quentin Cooley, 221 carries, 1,401 yards, and 6.3 average with 16 touchdowns for the running back. They bring back the backup as well, Billy Lucas. 114 carries, 597 yards, 5.2 a carry, and 6 touchdowns. It's so hard to stop the option when they decide to run it with those 2 guys, those 3 guys. Then they bring back Trayon Sibley, wide receiver, who had 23 catches for 467 yards and 4 touchdowns. Joseph Carter, a linebacker, who had 59 total tackles, 33 solos, a pass breakup, and a pick. Kobe Singleton, who I thought might have transferred to and went to a Power 5 school, but he decided to stay at Liberty. 41 total tackles, 30 solos, 12 pass breakups, 4 picks, and a touchdown. And CJ Brazil Jr., defensive end, 49 total tackles, 20 solos, and 3 sacks. They did lose CJ Daniels, a wide receiver who went to LSU, who had 55 catches, 1,067 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Tyron Dupree, the linebacker, who had 123 total tackles, 66 solos, 2.5 sacks, 3 pass breakups, and 2 picks. And Preston Hodge, who went to Colorado, cornerback, who had 48 total tackles, 32 solos, 8 pass breakups, 2 picks, a touchdown, and a forced fumble. Ace, talk about Liberty for me.
Yeah, so Liberty obviously was a great team last year. They got to that bowl game versus Oregon, even got out first and scored. Granted, it all came crashing down, but, they definitely came out with the right attitude. I think Liberty, I think the schedule is light. I think that the quarterback and running back tandem is definitely going to lead the charge again. I think leading the FBS in rushing does what they did last year. And I think they'll do a lot of the same again this year. They're going to have to. Obviously, losing CJ Daniels at wide receiver is a big blow to them. But hopefully Trayon Sibley can, step up and make some big plays for them as he's the only returning wide receiver. The defense lost a lot too. They lost the Conference USA Player of the Year, Tyron Dupree. They also lost some key pieces in the secondary too to the transfer portal, and that was the secondary that led to FBS and interceptions. Even with all that, I still think that Liberty is going to have a successful season and possibly go undefeated.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree. I agree. Now they bring in the almost read the wrong number. 101st overall recruiting class, 92nd in transfers. Guys like Tyson Mobley, wide receiver from Coastal Carolina, transfers in with 7 catches, 104 yards. But he's coming from Jamie Chadwell's old stomping grounds. Taylor Jackson transfers in at linebacker from ECU, 51 total tackles, 14 solos, 4 pass breakups, a sack, and a forced fumble. And Dominic Hills transfers in the cornerback from Temple, 47 total tackles, 29 solos, 4 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. Oh, my bad. Last one. Julian Gray transfers in from NC State, a wide receiver with 16 catches, 170 yards, and a touchdown. So they're trying to help with the receiving core for Caden Salter. I do think Trayon Sibley, he made some plays. He made some big plays last year. I think he's going to be able to step up for CJ Daniels, but they're bringing in some help just in case. They had the 4th total offense, 58th total defense, 9th scoring offense, 49th scoring defense, 1st in rushing, 24th in rush defense, 88th in passing, and 116th in the pass defense. If you have nothing else, we can hop into the schedule.
Let's do it.
First game is against Campbell. I have as a W at home.
I have as a W.
Second game at New Mexico State, W.
W.
Third game, UTEP at home, W.
W.
Fourth game, East Carolina at home, W.
W.
Now, the 5th game at Appalachian State, I have as an L.
You have as an L? I have them pulling this one out.
I'm not mad at it. I feel like it's one of those 50-50 games.
So
then I have them winning out the rest of the season at home against FIU, on the road against Kennesaw State, at home against Jacksonville State, on the road against Middle Tennessee and UMass, at home against Western Kentucky, and on the road against Sam Houston State.
Yeah, I have the exact same. Like I said earlier, I think the schedule is really light. I think the App State game is really the only one that
Hold on now.
No. I'm just saying. I think it's the one that they're going to have the most trouble with.
Hey, Jack State ain't sweet. I got to win it, but it ain't sweet.
I mean, look, I'm not saying any. Look, no game week in week out is sweet, but I just think that they'll. I love their quarterback. I love the running back. I have the utmost faith in them. I think.
I'm with you though. Liberty I really love Liberty, bro. Even when Liberty had Malik Willis, and they were doing it.
Yeah. The team has the attitude about them that you just can't help but like.
Yep, Hugh Freeze, use them boys in there. Right back in the SEC. But we ain't talking about that. I got Liberty going 11-1, 8-0, and then winning the Conference USA Championship. I don't know who they would play. I know I had Jack State going 9-3, I think 6-2, but I don't know if that's good enough to make them play Liberty.
Yeah, I'm not too sure who they would play either, but I do have them, going 12-0, 8-0 in the conference and winning the championship.
Yes, sir. So we move on to Memphis, and no, this is not my American Athletic Conference champion pick. Is this yours?
I was going back and forth. I think they might be, honestly, just because that offense. I think the offense will separate them from everybody else in the conference. I think they talent.
I've seen this is another team where I've seen people put at that playoff spot because the Group of 5 conference champion gets a spot. Yeah. I've seen some put App State. I've seen some put Memphis. I've seen one put Liberty, which I don't think Liberty gets it. That's like you said, their schedule's too light. But I don't have Memphis winning the American Conference. Who do I have winning the American Conference? Y'all stay tuned. Mm-hmm. But Memphis is not a bad choice if you pick them. They were close. I think they lost the tiebreaker to SMU last year to making the conference championship, which SMU ended up winning it. But yeah, they did because Tulane went undefeated in the conference championship in the conference. Memphis tied with SMU, but SMU won the game, I think, the head-to-head. So SMU went to the championship and then won it. But Memphis is coming off a 9-3, 6-2 season where they won the Liberty Bowl 36-26 versus Iowa State. They returned 11 starters, 7 on offense, 4 on defense, namely being Seth Hannigan, the quarterback, 318 of 476, 3,883 yards, 66.8 completion percentage, 32 touchdowns to 9 picks. Rock Taylor at wide receiver with 69 catches, 1,083 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And Demir Blakency, 53 catches, 901 yards, and 7 touchdowns at wide receiver. Returned Chandler Martin, a linebacker, with 94 total tackles, 66 solos, 3 sacks, 2 pass breakups, 2 picks, a touchdown, and 2 forced fumbles.
Gray Rubin, defensive back, 52 total tackles, 38 solos, 2.5 sacks, and 3 pass breakups. And Cormonte Hamilton, defensive end, with 35 total tackles, 21 solos, 2 sacks, and a pass breakup. Now they do lose the shifty Blake Watson at running back, who's now trying to make the Broncos. He had 192 carries, 1,152 yards, 6 a carry, and 14 touchdowns. And you add 53 catches for 480 yards and 3 touchdowns in the air. They do lose Joseph Skates, the wide receiver, with 38 catches, 414 yards, 6 touchdowns, trying to make the Jags. Simeon Blair, defensive back, with 63 total tackles, 43 solos, 5 pass breakups, 2 picks, and a forced fumble. And Cam Smith is now lost at safety, 57 total tackles, 46 solos, 6 pass breakups, and 3 picks, transferring to TCU. They bring in the 66th overall recruiting class and 47th in transfers. Ace, give me something about Memphis.
Yeah, so with Memphis, like you said, 7 returning starters, Seth Hannigan being one of the most important of those returners. He is a very consistent quarterback. I believe his 4th year starting. So, I think with him there, they could possibly duplicate that explosiveness that they had on offense last year. 14th total offense, 6 scoring offense. I think they're probably one of the more complete offenses in that conference. 10-0 when they rush over 100 yards, 0-3 when they didn't. So it's definitely going to be important to see who will be the guy for them at running back. I think that's definitely probably the biggest question for them offensively. Like you said, they have 2 great receivers coming back with Rock Taylor and Demir Blankenship. I think both had 1,000 or near 1,000. I think Blankenship may have had like 900 or so.
Rock Taylor had 1,000. Blankenship had 901. Okay,
yeah, there you go. So as far as the defense was definitely not great last year, as they ranked 111th in total defense. But Chandler Martin, he is a stud. He's a great all-around linebacker. Definitely should be in the conversation of one of the best in the nation, I think. The D-line will be able to generate pressure, but I think that the main thing for the defense is will they be able to stop splash plays. They allowed over 80 plays of 20 yards or more last year. So if the defense can actually buckle down and, make some plays and get some stops, this team will be dangerous in the conference.
Yeah, I remember Navy was going crazy with the big plays against Memphis in that game. But, yeah, so to answer that question at running back, they went and got a transfer from my University of South Carolina Gamecocks, Mario Anderson, who had 143 carries, 707 yards, 4.9 a carry, and 3 touchdowns for South Carolina. They also try to help the receiving core out with Jair Shorter coming over from Auburn. He didn't get that much play. He didn't get that much stats at Auburn, but his numbers when he came from North Texas, 22 catches, 598 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So they're hoping the touchdown production comes back to Memphis. AJ Watts at safety, 50 total tackles, 37 solos, 6 pass breakups, and 2 picks. So they're trying to eliminate the big plays on the back end with that. Devin Baldwin on the D-line from Jack State, 13 total tackles, 8 solos. Elijah Herring from Tennessee, linebacker, 79 total tackles, 32 solos, a sack, and a pass breakup. And Javante Mackey, linebacker from Arkansas State, 84 total tackles, 52 solos, 2 sacks, and a pass breakup. Some numbers from Memphis: they were 14th for total offense, 111th for total defense, 6th in scoring offense, 92nd in scoring defense, 75th in rushing, 77th in rushing defense, 10th in passing, and 121st against the pass on defense. So, like you said, man, 80 plays of 20 yards plus. It's not good. The defense gave up a lot of explosive plays. Defense in general, they need to thank the offense for having the explosive offense that they did have, because, man, that defense was kind of hard to watch. But if you don't have anything else for me, we can go into the schedule.
No, let's do it.
First game against North Alabama at home, W.
I have that as a W.
Second game at Troy at home. Against Troy at home. If this was Troy with John Summerall, I might have gave this an L, but it's not. So I'm gonna give it a W.
I have the exact same sentiment. I have it as a W.
Third game at Florida State, L.
I have it as an L.
Fourth game at Navy, L.
I have that as an L.
Fifth game, Middle Tennessee State at home. I have it as a W.
I have that as a W.
Sixth game, South Florida on the road. I have it as an L, and you have it as a W.
Yeah, I have it as a W.
Seventh game against North Texas at home. I have it as a W.
That was a W.
Eighth game against Charlotte at home. I have it as a W.
I have it as a W.
Ninth game at UTSA, I have it as a W.
I was going back and forth over that, and I have it
I
as a
was
W.
too. I was too. I mean, I know Frank Harris is gone, but I think Owen McCown can step in and have a pretty good year for UTSA.
Yeah, I think as well.
I think this game could be fireworks. 10th game at home against Rice, W.
W.
11th game at home against UAB, I have as a W.
W.
The last game at Tulane, I have as a L.
I have that as an L as well.
So that makes Memphis for me 9-3, 6-2 in conference, which they don't get in the American Conference Championship game in my prediction.
Yes, I have the exact same record and the exact same prediction. I think that they will have a good season, but not hoisting any trophies.
Yeah, with my 7-1 record for South Florida, that puts South Florida against Memphis, and we move on to my American League champion in Tulane. Tulane coming off of a 11-1, 8-0 season. Not only are they coming off that, guess who's their head coach? John Summerall, the guy I just mentioned, who got Troy to back-to-back Sun Belt championships, is now in New Orleans at Tulane. So, man, I'm super high on the what are the Green Wave?
Green Wave.
I just blanked out on that one. I'm super high on the Green Wave. They returned 6 offensive starters and 5 defensive starters. But before we get into that, I got to get into what they went over last year. So again, 11-1, 8-0 in conference. They lost the American Athletic Conference Championship to SMU. SMU snuck them a championship on their way out to the ACC, 26-14. Then they lost the Military Bowl, 41-20 against Virginia Tech. But a lot of people are high on Virginia Tech. They returned sophomore running back Mekhi Hughes, 258 carries, 1,378 yards, 5.3 a carry, and 7 touchdowns. Could be on that Doak Walker watch. Euclid Brown at wide receiver, 33 catches for 391 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jesus Machado at linebacker, 98 total tackles, 56 solos, a pass breakup, and a pick. Returned Bailey Despaney, safety, 67 total tackles, 45 solos, 2 pass breakups, and a pick. Tyler Grubbs at linebacker, 85 total tackles, 57 solos, 3 sacks, and a pass breakup. And Patrick Jenkins on the defensive line, 35 total tackles, 20 solos, 5.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. Now, they did lose their quarterback, and Michael Pratt, who's trying to make the Packers 185 or 283, 2,406 yards, 65.4 completion percentage, 22 touchdowns with 5 interceptions. Chris Brazil, who's now on the Tennessee Volunteers at wide receiver, 44 catches, 711 yards, 5 touchdowns. Lawrence Keys, a wide receiver, who had 33 catches, 599 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And they lost Jaquan Jackson, who's trying to make the Tennessee Titans, a wide receiver who had 26 total tackles. I mean, not tackles. Oh, my God. 26 catches, 439 yards, and 4 touchdowns. They lost a Darius Hodge at the defensive line, who had 7.5 sacks for them. And they lost Jared Small, linebacker, who had 60 total tackles, 40 solos, 2 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and a 4th fumble. They come in with the 64th overall recruiting class and 48th in transfers. Ace, talk to me about Tulane.
Yeah, so Tulane is a team that I think is going to be great in the American Conference this year. So I think the offense would be fine. Bringing back Mekhi Hughes, he's a stud sophomore running back now, but he had a great freshman season. I think Todd Thompson coming in from Oregon is definitely going to be a great addition for them, and which is another reason why I'm not too worried about the offense. Obviously, they lost basically all their passing production from last year with the wide receivers and only one starting O-lineman. That's going to be some concern for them. But I think that the defense will be able to hold it down for them. John Summerall is a defensive coach, so it won't be long before the sacks and turnovers start happening for them. They also have, I think you already mentioned, Patrick Jenkins, who's going to be able to hold that D-line down. They have 2 solid linebackers, Jesus Machado and Tyler Grubbs, who combined for 183 tackles last season. They also have Troy transfer Caleb Ransaw coming in to bolster that secondary. So he's already going to be familiar with the system. So he's immediately, plug-and-play person. And the run defense, I think it'll still be a killer for them. So I think that, if the offense does study, the defense will carry this team.
Yeah, and one thing about Tulane is their defense has always been good, even under Willie Fritz. Willie Fritz last year had a really good defense at Tulane. Now, you touched on Caleb Ransaw, who I have on right here coming out of Troy, definitely a good pickup following his head coach over. But and you touched on Ty Thompson. I did want to talk about Mario Williams coming over from USC. He followed Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma to USC. I believe he was the #1 receiver in his class. Didn't really do much at USC. Only had 29 catches, 305 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But he was behind a lot of guys. He was behind Tyler Washington, Brennan Rice, Zachariah Branch. I'm blanking on the name. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But he was behind a lot of guys. So, Dorian Singer. He was behind him. So he had a lot of receivers to try to get in front of. But now at Tulane, with all them guys gone and only Euclid Brown coming back, he's going to have his touches for sure. Then you bring over a guy, Jonathan Edwards, a cornerback from Indiana State, who had 38 total tackles, 22 solos, and 5 pass breakups. Aiden Huntington, a defensive lineman from Louisiana Monroe, 62 total tackles, 28 solos, 8.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and 3 forced fumbles. So John Summerall's looking to do his thing at Tulane. They bring in the 74th total offense, 36th in total defense, 69th in scoring offense, 23rd in scoring defense, 68th in rushing, 16th against the run, tied 77th in passing, and 72nd against the pass. So some pretty solid numbers for Tulane. But if you got nothing else, we can get into the schedule.
Let's do it.
So first game, Southeast Louisiana, a pretty solid FCF school who normally has some explosive offenses, but I have this as a W.
Has a W.
K-State, I have as an L at home.
Yeah, I have that as an L.
But that was a 50-50 game in my opinion. At Oklahoma, I have as an L.
I have that as an L too.
Then I have them winning out the rest of the schedule against Louisiana Lafayette, W. At home against South Florida, W. On the road against UAB, W. At home against Rice, W. On the road against North Texas, W. On the road against Charlotte, W. At home against Temple, W. On the road against Navy, W. And at home against Memphis, W.
I actually have the exact same schedule. However, I do think that South Florida game was one. Well, South Florida and Memphis, but those were definitely the two in particular ones that I was like, I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah, I have them, 10-2.
10-2, 8-0, playing South Florida for me in the American Athletic Conference Championship, with Tulane beating South Florida again to win the American. And I have a playoff show coming up in about 30 minutes. Will they be the one to take that group of 5 spot? Stay tuned. All right, so our last team that we think you should look out for, that we agree on, is Texas State. Now, I haven't touched on the Sun Belt team. Ace touched on one. So that means that Texas State is my Sun Belt champion this year. Coming off of a 75-4-4 season, they won the First Responders Bowl against Rice 45-21. They returned 8 offensive and defensive starters. Now, the thing about Texas State last year, they had an explosive, deadly offense in terms of Sun Belt. Defense just allowed offenses to be just as explosive, and that was the issue. They returned Ismail Mahadi, though, at running back, 223 carries, 1,331 yards, 6 a carry for 10 touchdowns. Joey Hobart, 76 catches, 895 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And Cole Wilson at wide receiver, 66 catches, 747 yards, and 8 touchdowns. They returned Caleb Pope at safety, 81 total tackles, 48 solos, 5 pass breakups, and a touchdown. Ben Bell on the defensive end with 10 sacks, 57 total tackles, 32 solos, and a forced fumble. And they returned Alonzo Edwards Jr., linebacker, with 37 total tackles, 22 solos, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. They did lose TJ Finley at quarterback, which, not really a loss when Ace brought up the fact that they bring over Jordan McLeod, who was the Sun Belt Player of the Year last year at JMU. So you automatically upgrade at quarterback there. But TJ Finley went 279 to 414, 3,439 yards, 67.4 completion percentage, 24 touchdowns to 8 picks. He's now at Western Kentucky. And they lose Ashton Hawkins, wide receiver, that went to Baylor, 55 catches, 874 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And they lose Sean Holton at safety, 92 total tackles, 64 solos, pass breakup, 2 picks, and 4 forced fumbles. They come with the 78th overall recruiting class, 61st in transfers. Talk to me about Texas State, Ace.
Yeah, like you said earlier, Texas State is going to be a super explosive offense. G.J. Kinney, the head coach, his offenses, if you remember that year that Incarnate World was in the FCS playoff, I think that was the year they had Cam Ward, if I'm not mistaken.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, that was a super explosive team, man. They are definitely doing the same thing since he's been there in 2022, since 2022. And like you said earlier, now with Jordan McLeod, it only seems like the offense is going to do a lot more of the same, returning 5 of the 6 top receivers and Ismail Mahdi. He's a great running back. I think they're going to be very successful on offense. Now, the defense is definitely another story. They were horrible on third down. They allowed 32 points per game, almost 400 yards per game. That's definitely going to have to change in order for them to be as successful as we think they're going to be this season. But to be honest, if it does come down to a shootout, I still think this team can get it done. I don't really see them losing more than 3 games this season.
As you say that, I forgot to write my record down. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the transfers they bring in. Manny Nunnery, linebacker from Florida, 28 total tackles, 11 solos, half a sack, and a pass breakup. Dion Hankins and Torrance Burgess, both running backs coming over from UTEP, which was kind of shocking because Marty's still there, which I didn't know why both of them came over, but they came over to help add some depth to the running back position. Bryce Bass comes in from Gardner Webb on the edge, 26 total tackles, 10 solos, 2.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. And Justin Harris, defensive back from Cincy, 31 total tackles, 19 solos, 6 pass breakups, and a pick. So Kenny's trying to make a push to help that defense out at Texas State. Now they come in with the 15 total offense, 91st total defense, 11 scoring offense, 112 scoring defense, 26 in rushing, 69th against the run, 28th in passing, and 100th against the pass. So like we said, man, just terrible on the defensive end. But if you have nothing left, we can get into this Texas State schedule.
Let's do it.
First game at home against Lamar, I have as a W.
Have as a W.
Second game at home against UTSA, I have as a W.
I have that as an L. I think UTSA might get them.
Not mad at it. I went with a W because of how good that offense is. UTSA, now defensively last year, I would say UTSA is one of the better defensive teams that I've seen in a while out of the UTSA defenses I have seen. Mm-hmm. But I think it's going to be a shootout, and Texas State is at home, so I gave them a W.
Yeah, I ain't mad at that.
And then the next game against Arizona State, I gave them the L, but they could very well beat Arizona State.
Yeah, I said the same. I did give them an L, especially at home, but same thing. It was same circumstances as the week before. They possibly could win that game, but I think they're getting the L.
Next game against Sam Houston State at NRG Stadium, so neutral site. I gave it to Texas State. I gave them a W.
Yeah, I gave them a W as well.
Then on the road against Troy, I gave them a W.
I gave them an L against Troy, simply because Troy is home, and they're actually 0-9 against Troy.
So I gave them an L at first originally for them same sentiments, but Jordan McLeod's there. I think
could be a new day for sure.
Yeah, it could be it. So I gave him the W. I changed it. Next game at home against Arkansas State, I have as a W.
Have as a W.
Next game at ODU, I have as a W.
As a W.
Next game against University Louisiana Lafayette, that's a tongue twister. Have as a W.
Have as a W.
Next game at University of Louisiana Monroe, I have as a W.
Have as a W.
Next game against Southern Mississippi, I have as a W.
Have as a W.
Next game against Georgia State, I have as a W.
A W.
The final game against South Alabama, I have as a W, but I went back and forth with this one too.
Yeah, I did as well, but I have it as a W. I think they're just going to finish the season out strong going into the conference championship.
Yeah, so I have Texas State going 11-1, 8-0 in conference, playing the other side. I don't know who comes out the other side. I'm gonna just say Appalachian State, just based on what everybody else thinks. I don't know, to be completely honest, but I think they beat whoever comes out the other side of the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have them going 9-3 though, 7-1 in conference, but I do have them winning the conference championship.
All right, and with that being said, those are our 10 teams that you should look out for. I would like to thank my boy Ace for coming on as always, rocking out with your boy off the late night. College football is here in 12 hours, in 12 minutes. I cannot wait. The week 0 preview will be at 6:45 in the morning. As I said, it's already written up. Just got to get up and do it. Next episode will be in about 10-15 minutes. I have the playoffs all written up. I have my awards all written up. Just got to run through it. I got to change these banners. You know what I'm saying? Get some water. Do some stuff real quick. But Ace, any final words for the people?
Nah, man, thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you every week, man. You know, doing your thing, getting us educated.
I appreciate it. And you know, man, whenever y'all got a game, whenever you want to talk about a game, you're more than welcome to come on the show. Just hit me up. It's already done. My final words is we finally made it through. We're finally here. All the offseason talk is over with. It's time to show up and show out for the next 13 weeks. Yes, I'm including week 0. Time to hit some parlays. Hey, I told you out here one, we some degenerates. We already got plays lined up for tomorrow. Can't wait. But again, man, I'll be live in the next 10-15 minutes to go over my playoffs and award shows. I would like to see y'all there, but it's also almost midnight, so I will understand if you're not there. I got to work in the morning, so I'm going to just try to run through it real quick. But I appreciate you if you watched, if you stayed, if you just tuned in and out, commented, wherever. I do appreciate it. But I will see y'all in the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'm gone. Peace.
Thank you for staying to the end. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like this video, subscribe, and also hit that notification button so you can be notified next time we put out a video. If you're listening on any podcast platform, subscribe and hit that notification button, y'all, so you can be notified we put out another podcast audio. And last but not least, hit that share button. No matter what you're listening to or watching it, hit that share button and send it to somebody that you know that would love to watch this episode you just listened to. So once again, thank you for staying to the end, and we'll see y'all at the next episode.